Howdy everyone. I want to look at chicken picking. A lot of people ask me about how do I chicken pick, the kind of stuff like I just did then. I'm going to do a series of videos on an introduction to chicken picking, and the most important thing is your right hand. Your left hand isn't doing stuff that is too different to what it would normally play if you're playing blues or rock or jazz, but it's your right hand that really has to make a couple of adjustments in order to do that kind of stuff. It's a hybrid form of playing, meaning you're using pick and fingers, but it's different to, say, regular hybrid picking, or at least I view it as being slightly different, because normally when I do regular hybrid picking for, say, like rockabilly stuff, if I was doing a kind of with that, I'm using kind of the tip of my finger and my fingernail. When I chicken pick, I actually use the side of my finger. So I use a flat pick. I don't use a thumb pick. The picks that I use are blue chip CT55s. They're quite large. I know this size isn't for everybody, but I really like it because it means that I've got more coverage on the pick. But you can do this with a teardrop or a jazz pick, it doesn't really matter. And there are a whole bunch of great pickers who use thumb picks, Brent Mason and Scotty Anderson being probably the two best examples of that style. I hold my pick like this. You can see, like that, just regularly. And I use my middle finger and my ring finger. And what I do is, you might be able to see if I hold up the thing, I use these edges of my fingers, the fleshy pads. I don't use fingernails. I've got a lot of friends that have like big acrylic nails. The reason why I never did that is I spent many years playing classical guitar, and obviously your fingernails on a classical guitar are your picks. And I found that when using acrylics is really frowned upon in the classical music world, so that was out, and using your actual nails, they just got destroyed. So I was like, I have to come up with a different way. And I personally prefer the tone of the flesh. I like the way I can get underneath the string and really pop it up. So when I'm playing, I'll just bring my guitar closer so you can kind of see this. I have, see there's like this cigarette stain on my guitar. That's where my palm goes. When I'm ordinarily picking, I have my palm just resting here on the bridge as such, and it moves as if it's almost like train tracks. I sort of am over whatever string I'm plucking. But when I play country music, I rest my palm here and I reach down. That's just what I prefer. And I can move between the two if need be. Having said that, when I pluck with my fingers, that hybrid picking I was doing before, I'm using my fingernails like this. But for chicken pick and stuff, I actually get underneath and I pull the string up. So I get some of the... It gets that percussive sound because you're actually pulling the string up and it slaps across the fretboard. In classical music, that's what's known as a Bartok pizzicato. So, I grew up listening to a lot of kind of country music stuff. You know, I heard Danny Gatton when I was a kid, and this was pre-YouTube, pre-internet, well, very early stage of the internet. And I was immediately taken by that sound. I wanted to know how guys like Jerry Donahue and Danny Gatton, the great Albert Lee, did that kind of thing. And I worked out enough that I could mimic the sound, but I was still stumped by like the really fast double stops. And I remember having a real light bulb moment once. And I was in a hotel room in Chicago, and I was mucking around with this kind of stuff. And I stumbled across just a couple of exercises that would then lay the foundation for the technique that I developed. So I'm going to show you those exercises now. For me, or at least my sort of way of chicken picking, there are more than one way to skin a cat, these are the things that I suggest you do. And I reckon if you work mainly, get the right hand happening, then everything else, every lick you want to play will sort of fall into line. So the way I thought about it is the way that when I played classical guitar, if you had a problem, you were sort of trained that you would analyze the bar if it was a piece by Bach, and you would look at what you think the problem was. So if it was a scale, then you would break down and go, okay, what component of the scale was it? Oh, it's a left-hand fingering thing. Okay, so it's a position shift. So almost like a surgeon or someone, you'd isolate the cause, and then rather than just keep playing that same scale over and over and over again, which won't make it any better, you would then come up with a couple of generic practice things to work on, and you would work on that, and then you could go back and play the piece and find it improved. And so I did the same thing here. I realized that everything that I play when it comes to chicken picking can be reduced to either pick middle or pick middle and ring. I don't really do ring by itself too often unless it's in like a banjo roll. It can be on adjacent strings or separated by a string. And then the really big revelation was that for a lot of those fast semi-quaver runs, you kind of think about your hand as if it was like the picking motion. Down is going to be the pick, up is going to be the fingers, and then you can also do an extra up with the pick. So I'll show you. You can do these on open strings. So, you know, as a kid I would sort of sit down, I would just watch The Simpsons and do this kind of stuff, picking over and over again. I would practice doing them on all different string groups, but these are the ones to work on. Put a metronome on, really slow. Maybe just like crotchet equals, what would that be, like a half note equals 60, and then I would, or a whole note, you know, like whatever really sort of works for you, and then you can do subdivisions of different rhythms. So if that's my beat, then I'm going to practice going down on the D, and then middle finger's going to pluck the G. And I want my hand to be as stationary as possible. I don't want it to bounce around. Getting a nice tone. They're going to sound different, and that's the point, but you don't want one to be particularly louder than the other one, unless, of course, it's intended. Then practice doing it with a string missing, like A and G. And you can do that in triplets. That's good because you get cyclic accents. Then you can add the ring into the mix. When I pluck like that, I think of these two as a unit, and they just come down. It's like they're joined. That's at least how I sort of view it mentally. Do the same thing. So it's the same idea. Then I practice doing a banjo roll. So getting like just a forward roll. And then on each first beat, you're going to get a new sort of note that's going to accent. Thumb, middle, ring, thumb. And that's how, for those of you who know the great Danny Gatton tune Sun Medley, there's this, in the third solo he does in That's Alright Mama, he does this killer lick. It's this A major arpeggio, which stumped me for years. I didn't know how he did it. I knew what it was, but I didn't know how he played it. And once I worked out the fingering, where he's sort of going, it's just that exercise. But cleaner. Like that. And that's a good exercise. You can do that on any chord, really. It's good for a lot of those like Chet Atkins, open string, cross string, cascade licks, whatever you want to call them. That kind of stuff. You do those things. So that's a very practical application for that technique. The next one that I came up with was going down with the pick, up with the middle, and then up on the same string with the pick. That's the really useful one, because all of those really fast lines, you sort of, if you're playing four notes, you go pluck, pluck, pick, slide. So you do 3 plucking motions and you get 4 notes, like a. So it's the same deal, just practicing it. Do it skipping a string. You can do it with your ring as well, and then you would pluck both strings. This is like 3 ideas so far. You can really reduce the whole chicken picking thing into a few simple categories for the right hand. The next one is taking that banjo roll idea and then doing an up pluck. So instead of it being a group of 3 notes, it's now a group of 4 notes. So I'm going D with a down pluck, G with a middle, ring on B, and then I do an up on the G, and then I go back to D again. I found this was really useful for playing jazz lines, because the way a lot of jazz lines are structured meant that I had to have an extra pluck in there, and so I just came up with that, because there were lines like a that kind of stuff, which plucked, not a problem, but when you want to chicken pick it, they said to come up with something else. So that was an exercise that I developed to get that kind of thing happening. Then the final one that I do a lot of too is just literally fingers. And I might do it in like harmonized thirds, like. I want to make sure that they sound together. I want them to have a good tone. And if you're going to be getting into any high tempo stuff, you're going to play any really fast songs, you just need to have that. So next few lessons I'll show you a couple of licks and I'll break down exactly how I do them, more from a right hand perspective than a left hand perspective, because the left hand is pretty straightforward with the guitar. I mean, not only can you visually see it on the fretboard, but everybody's left hands are usually far more experienced than their right hands, and they sometimes, take up way too much of our attention. So with this stuff, I'm going to focus more on that kind of thing. Let's play a couple of licks here to send it out so you can sort of see. I might play it on an angle like this so you can actually just watch my picking from here. Alright, these are going to be in the key of, let's do E. So have fun with that one. Please share this video around if you think anyone's going to benefit from this stuff. I just want to try and make this aspect of playing guitar, whether it's technique, theory, harmony, improvising, accessible to all guitar players. Please give us a follow on YouTube, a like on Facebook. These are on Instagram as well. So thanks for your time. I'll catch you around.